Anna had once been the kind of girl people turned to look at twice, not because she tried to attract attention, but because there was a quiet light in her. Her laughter had been warm, her eyes bright with hope. But life had a cruel way of dimming even the purest light. Now she moved through the world almost invisibly, head lowered, steps careful, voice rarely heard. She worked as a cleaner in a large, elegant house on the edge of the city. It was the kind of place filled with glass walls, polished floors, and silence, a silence that somehow matched the emptiness inside her chest. Every morning she arrived before anyone else, tying her hair back, slipping on worn gloves, and beginning the same routine: dust, wipe, polish, repeat. She did her work perfectly, almost obsessively, as if keeping things spotless could somehow erase the stains of her own past. No one there knew her story. No one asked. But there had been a time when someone had known her completely. His name was Michael. Even now, the memory of him lived in her like an old wound that never truly healed. He had once been her whole world, her laughter, her dreams, her future. They had loved each other with the fierce certainty of young hearts that believed love alone could conquer anything. But love had not been enough. Circumstances, cruel, tangled, and misunderstood, had torn them apart. To Michael, it had looked like betrayal. To Anna, it had been sacrifice. She had carried the truth alone, swallowing it day after day because revealing it would have destroyed more lives than just her own. So she let him hate her, and she disappeared from his life. Years later, she was still paying the price. The owner of the house where she worked was Daniel Carter, a man known for his sharp mind, reserved nature, and intimidating success. He was young for someone so powerful, but there was nothing careless about him. Everything he did was deliberate, controlled. He rarely noticed the staff in his home. To him, efficiency was what mattered, not faces or names. Until he noticed her. It happened one evening when he returned home earlier than usual. The sun was setting, casting long amber light across the living room. He stepped inside quietly and paused. Anna stood near the window, holding a cloth in one hand. She wasn't cleaning. She wasn't moving at all. She was staring outside as if the world beyond the glass had swallowed her whole. Even from a distance, Daniel could see something was wrong. Her shoulders were trembling almost imperceptibly. When she turned slightly, he saw the faint shine on her cheek. Tears. For a moment, he simply watched, surprised by a feeling he couldn't immediately name. He had seen people cry before, employees, strangers, even business rivals. It had never affected him. But this was different. There was something painfully quiet about her sorrow, something that felt too heavy for such a fragile frame. He stepped closer, his shoes soft against the polished floor. "Are you all right?" he asked. His voice was calm, but Anna startled as if struck. She quickly turned away, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't realize you were home." "That's not what I asked." She froze. No one ever insisted with her. People usually accepted her silence and moved on. But he stood there waiting, not harshly, but firmly. Her fingers tightened around the cloth. "I'm fine," she murmured. It was the oldest lie she knew. Daniel studied her for a long second. She kept her gaze lowered, lashes casting shadows over reddened eyes. There was no attempt to gain sympathy, no dramatic display, only a desperate effort to hide pain. Strangely, that made him trust the pain more. "You've been crying," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Anna's throat tightened. She wanted to deny it again, to retreat into the safe emptiness she lived in, but something in his tone, not pity, not curiosity, but simple concern, made the walls around her heart tremble. "I apologize," she said instead. "It won't happen again." The words sounded wrong even to her, as if sorrow were some workplace mistake. Daniel frowned slightly. "I wasn't criticizing you." She looked up then, just for a moment. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition of loneliness, perhaps, or the sudden awareness of another human soul standing too close to one's own hidden wounds. Anna looked away first. "I should continue working," she said softly. She moved past him, but Daniel remained where he was, watching her retreating figure. For reasons he couldn't explain, the sight left a dull ache beneath his ribs. He had everything people envied: wealth, influence, control. Yet that fragile girl's silent tears had unsettled him more than any crisis in his empire. He found himself wondering, who had hurt her that deeply? Not far away, another man was asking the same question, though with far darker thoughts. Michael had never truly let Anna go. Time had hardened him, carved sharp lines into a once open face. He had buried himself in work, success, and pride, convincing himself he no longer cared. But memory was stubborn. It returned in dreams, in music, in the sudden scent of rain on pavement. And then, by chance, he saw her again. Across a crowded street, head lowered, walking alone. For a heartbeat he thought he was imagining her, but when she turned slightly, he saw her profile, thinner now, paler, but unmistakable. Anna. Shock had frozen him in place. By the time he moved, she was already disappearing into the city. He followed. Not openly, something between anger and desperation guiding him. He needed to know, needed to understand why she had thrown him away, why she now lived like a stranger in her own life. That search led him to the apartment building where she lived, modest, worn, far from the life they had once planned together. He watched from across the street as she entered, and then he saw it. A black car parked near the entrance, expensive, out of place in that neighborhood. A man stepped out briefly, tall, well-dressed, confident, before driving away. His chest burned. So this was the truth. She had left him for someone richer. All the old wounds tore open at once, bleeding fresh rage. The years of unanswered questions, the humiliation, the shattered trust, everything crystallized into a single bitter certainty. She had betrayed him, and now she lived under another man's protection. His hands clenched into fists. He didn't know the truth, that the car belonged to her employer, that their connection was nothing more than circumstance. He saw only what pain allowed him to see, and pain was rarely honest. That night, Anna sat alone in her small apartment, the dim light barely softening the stark walls. Her hands rested in her lap, unmoving. She could still feel Daniel's gaze, steady, concerned, unfamiliar. It frightened her, because for the first time in years, someone had looked at her not with suspicion or indifference, but with quiet care. And that was dangerous. Hope was always dangerous. She closed her eyes, pressing her lips together as memory surged again. Michael's smile, Michael's anger, The day everything had shattered, the secret she still carried like a stone in her chest. "I chose this," she whispered into the empty room. She had chosen sacrifice, chosen silence, chosen loneliness, and there was no turning back. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that 3 lives were already drifting towards collision. A woman bound by past love, a man wounded by betrayal, and another man just beginning to care. Their story had only begun. To be continued.